Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I know it's Friday afternoon, second session after lunch. Probably food is already kicking in, putting you to sleep. But we'll try to see how we can keep your energy levels up. Okay. Starting with, I think, from yesterday till today, right? I think we have seen a lot of good sessions around AI-assisted migration, AI-powered component development, and in fact, the last session that we saw, right, it's using MCP servers for AI-assisted development. I think all these innovations that people are trying is trying to solve a critical part of the delivery lifecycle, right? But when we step back and see, the larger question is, how do we address this in how do we accelerate the delivery in the entire SDLC? So today, we are here to talk about how we are going to rethink Sitecore engineering to correct, right? I think, in fact, it's not only Sitecore engineering, right? Be it any DXP platform, how we are going to accelerate the delivery lifecycle, or like how do we accelerate the complete SDLC using this from intent to release ready components with governed agents, which is not going to just generate the code for you, right? It is also going to prove that it is fast, secure, and reliable. Before we start getting into the actual things, let me introduce myself. My name is Vinodh Sampath. I am a principal solution architect at Valtech, primarily focused on delivering AI-assisted delivery on composable stacks and the DXP platform.
Hi everyone, my name is Sandeep. I'm a technical architect and having more than a decade of experience in Sitecore. I have experience on other DXPs as well, and I'm very excited to be here again speaking for SUGCON, and glad that you all are here to hear about us.
Okay, what is the story for today? So basically what is the problem that we are trying to solve? Then the framework that actually solves our problem. As part of this, right, like we're also going to cover what is there in the framework and a quick demo on how we are actually building components from Figma intent to release ready components in minutes. Also, we are going to cover about the challenges and what's the lesson that we learned as part of this journey. Coming to the problem, I think despite the advancements in technology, the development practices, one challenge that remains across our digital programs is, right, basically the delivery is still slow, right? Because delivery is slow, of course, the prices actually, like the delivery becomes too expensive, and also like some of the process that we have is very fragmented. Now, let's take a typical Sitecore delivery traditional flow, right? So basically what happens, it starts with design, stories, requirements, basically which is handed over to the developer. The developer reviews, and then probably like he asks 10 number of questions. By the time we get answers for those questions, right, you would have already assumed something and you would have started building something. Once he starts the building, yeah, you would have already pushed it to QA for testing. QA would raise defects. Then probably again the developer fixes the defect. This cycle repeats, right? So by the time in this journey, right, we would have forgotten one thing. Like we have already forgotten writing about unit test cases. We would have forgotten about the documentation that we are doing that is supposed to be done. So how do we address these challenges that is happening, right? The challenge here is not about the development effort. It is actually the friction that actually is surrounding around the development that we are doing. Now, what if all these manual steps that has been spoken about, right? What if these manual steps can be delegated to intelligent agents? When I say intelligent agents, I'm not talking about automation, which actually follows some rules. So basically, I'm talking about agents that can actually understand the context, which can actually take actions. Probably it can also like connect to different MCP servers so that it can bring data and push data to the systems, and also which can actually continuously improve your outcomes. So in next 20 minutes or 10 minutes, we are going to see the framework that we have built for this. I'll hand it over to Sandeep to go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vinod. So I think we all are hearing a lot about AI, in last 1.5 days so far. So the solution here is to have, multi-agents for each of the specific requirement by which you would be able to focus, and without any hallucination, you can be able to get the desirable results. And the gates would be humans as developers, as leads, and as architects who would be validating each output of the state. And then what it will bring is efficiency in terms of the gold standard of quality, and then zero compromises, and later back and forth between the multiple handoffs in the team. So in this human-assisted agentic delivery architecture, the first thing is inputs. That's what we call as a spec-driven development. So in the spec-driven development, you have to input the specifications, which would be the Figma design, as we are here talking about a use case in the SDLC, which is like a development for a greenfield project. So we have certain content modeling, which would be like, what the template would be, what would be the name of the component, what would be the data source, what would be the fields it require. Then there would be some repo standards. So I think a lot of us has, a document in the Confluence or in Jira coding standards. Some of us used to see those, some of us completely missed those, and have to write our own way. Someone was writing in Pascal case, someone was writing in Camel case. So that's what these standards are. Some Sitecore rules, like for example, if you are creating a component for a specific feature, whether it should go into the foundation layer, it should be on a higher level as a page, and then some risk constraints. So this is like a Bible, you're putting for your specific agents to trigger, and what all guardrails or boundaries it should follow diligently. So once you have these inputs, I'll come back to all of this in detail, but just for this slide, then our agents will trigger. So our agents would intent, they will build, they will validate, they will review, and then they will release. Again, every output would be validated by human developer, and they will be in charge of all this process. The output would be what a particular component with some sort of Sitecore, modeling with the serialization. It will have a gate scorecard. That is the main, heart of our this session. It will have the release notes. It will have the checkpoints by which even after 1 year, you can go back and see the specific developer A has run this particular agents, and this was the output, and this was the reasoning the AI has done for this particular operation. So AI drafts, gates prove, and humans approve. Now it's time for demo. So I think to start with, how we do is like we follow this Azure, or Jira, for example, and there we have one of the ticket. Let's say, this ticket is like, again, the specification-driven development, wherein I have specified the Figma URLs, I have specified the user story description, I have specified the business requirements for this promo carousel card. I have specified that, it should follow this structure, it should have these all fields in Sitecore. For the main component, container component, and then for each of the card, it should have specific fields. Then the behavior should be, it should have not more than 3. Similarly, for the card layout, it could have something else, and then the scope of work. So how all this will come? All this will come by engaging as an architect or as a lead, with your PO, your BA, and have these specifications finalized. Once you have these all specifications finalized, using generative AI or probably, again, using some agent, you can have a basic structure ready for this particular ticket, which would be, again, like the specification which we are going to input to our agents. And now I will go to this. 1 minute, please. I think there is an issue with my internet. So now, if I show you, this is my Figma design, right? And here I can see that, this is what the complete page design I have for one of the page, in which I have multiple components like this one, this one, this one. So this is my input, but I'm working right now on just one component, which is group promo carousel component, right? So this particular Figma design I have given in my ticket, right? And now I am starting on the journey of using the agents. So for the agents, so first thing in my, this AI journey is like I have something called skills. How many of you know what a skill is? So the skill is like, if I give you an analogy, like if you are looking for a Chinese food, then you have a, Chinese specialist chef who must be looking for a tool like, a wok in which they can do the stir fry, for example. Similarly, if you are Italian chef, you have to bake pizza, then you would be looking for an oven. So these skills are like the basic, structure, basic specification that the agents should use. So in the component creation flow, I will have an orchestration in which the first skill will be the intake requirement, which may be used by an architect agent. Similarly, I have one build component skill, which would be used by the component agent creation. Similarly, I would be having a Sitecore MCP creation, which will be like a provision agent, skill that will be used. And then the main focus is a validation skill. So once you have this, component developed, whether you call it a vibe coding or whatever, through anti-gravity, we have seen, Cursor, Claude, Copilot. The main thing is this validation, right? That's where the things fail. And that's what our main focus is. Once you have the development done, through your specifications, you would be having a lot of validations here, which would be around the automation QA, around the analytics, around the security, around the SEO geo capabilities, performance. So all those skills are used by agents. So I will come back here and I'll show you. This is what my agents look like, in VS Code. And again, here, if I show you, this is my agent journey, when I have an agent called SDLC orchestrator. So what that agent does, it calls the ADO through the MCP, it creates a branch, architect agent comes and it checks for the basic schema, basic validations. Then the UI agent comes, it goes through all of your repo. Again, it goes through all of your skills. The reason we are having skills here is we don't want to lose the context, we don't want to hallucinate, we just want the desirable results, which are the basic things we want as a developer. And this, what all is this is doing, it is bringing the efficiency, and allowing developers to focus on the other important stuff in terms of, any handover or something. So you can see like I have multiple agents, which would be running like dev agent, Sitecore agent, QA agent has 11 quality gates, 9 quality gates, SEO agent, geo agent, code review, which would be doing the SonarQube compliance as well. I have a security agent which would be doing the static and pen test guidelines. I have a documentation agent which will create the documentation also in the ADO. I have a rollback agent in case the business is not happy with this particular output. I should be able to roll back. Then I have a release agent which should be able to release, but again, the human validation is the requirement here. And then I have a knowledge base update. This is very important thing. So here the idea is whatever any developer is doing, right, that would be saved as the checkpoint in right now in the files, but in probably in the embedding DB, like a vector DB, as embeddings. so that we as a team also, develop this complete knowledge bank. And in future, that can be used for many purposes. You can come back to see, why 6 months before we had created this particular hero banner component, and probably, now we have to extend. So what was the reasoning by the model, and what was the reasoning given by the developer in the story? So this is what it typically looks like. And these all agents have the capability, they can run as an individually, as well as you can make them in the orchestration. For example, if I go to the SDLC orchestration, I can see that, it would be going to call different agents, and this would be the all status, it would be going to make. So that's the beauty of this. And let's say, you have triggered this whole pipeline for the SDLC orchestration, and now you got some feedback from your business that, they would like to have a small variation in the component. So maybe you don't need to run the whole orchestration again, and you can just, trigger the component creation guide. So for that purpose, like if we see the Copilot, right, we have the agent tab here. We can choose which particular agent we want to go. For example, if I'm choosing the SDLC component, here it's giving me the white labeling that, give me the ADO ticket ID that you want, because that's all we have mentioned in those specific files. For example, here the tools I'm specifying is like it should be using the ADO MCP, it should be using the Sitecore MCP tools, and what all, it would be required to do. Similarly, for the playwright testing, it has to call the browser, Chrome and all. So that's what it is. I have this video as a demo. So, if you see here, like I have just given a URL of my ticket, and it has started with, a to-do list, and it has made the connection to the ADO MCP. And then it has created a lot of to-do steps, in which it is asking that, it should follow the branch creation, it should go to the architect agent, then it should go to the UI agent, and once all that would be done, it will be going to the component creation. And as an architect agent, again, you are the owner of this whole process as a developer. You are working with your team to specify these skills, specify these agent specifications or the prompts, that what exactly the output is, and it should be a consistent output across the team. So that is the main idea of this one. We started with prompts, but now we have moved to skills with agents, so that's the whole process. And we can see here, like for example, my architect agent has passed that, this story is really ready for development. And you can see the UI agent started triggering, and it has started creating these front-end component files in the system. So that's how it is happening. And now will be handing off. So how these agents would be orchestrating, there is something called handoff. So like a typical development flow in the SDLC, we talk about like, when we get the Figma, when we get some specification story feature, we talk in a call with, let's say the front-end developer that, okay, that person says, no, this is not ready, I need this. So that capability is here also. But again, on the basis of the specification, that if the specification is not there, it will fail. And these LLMs have the capability of self-healing, as we just saw that, there was some error, and it tries to auto-heal that, it has to go to the next step. Here, for the purpose of this demo, I have made the handoff to, skip save for the playwright, and it is going to the Sitecore provisioning, where it will allow you to create the respective Sitecore fields. So for the matter of time, I will make it, a bit fast. And here we can see that, for example, this Sitecore provisioning step was done. Now it is entering the QA agent, where we have 14 extensive steps in which it was going to do a lot of work here, which would be like, again, I'll show you. So we can see here, like it has completed this 17 test passes with 89% of test coverage. And it has done a lighthouse code test. It has done different other sort of testings, which would be the basic, bugs which we discover, and a lot of time goes into all those. So once we have all these, our SEO GEO gate is going to trigger. Again, every agent would be looking for some specification, some input in the ticket. So that is the business responsibility. And here we can see that, We are into the security agent. So our security agent is running all these checks. It is checking the cognitive complexity should be less. It is checking that there should not be any unused variables. So just in case, if you're working with these agents, you can be rest assured that the delivery you are doing would be quite consistent across all the team, and also you will not have any chance of leaving any spillage or leakage in terms of security impacts for your application. So that's the main purpose here we are talking about. And our security gate has done now. This is a documentation. So these documentations are also generated through the documentation agent. And next is the rollback plan, right? So I can see a lot of files have been created already in my Git client. And I can see that it is now trying to stage the files. But again, we are not talking about the automatic agentic delivery here. We are talking about human-assisted agentic delivery here. So that is the main purpose, so that I don't want to hear from my team member after 1 month, I don't know about this code because this code was written by AI. We really don't want that, because we have already seen what happened in last few months with big companies. There was a lot of hallucination, and the data manipulation was there. So this is what all showing as the checkpoints. As I told it is showing the checkpoints for the future records, so that we can separately manage these files. That this is what the whole output is for this one. So I think my all agents have passed, and here I will give a pause and see the branch creation was done. My architect agent ran successfully, my UI agent ran successfully, my design pixel perfection check with the playwright was skipped. That was my decision. Otherwise I would have stopped this whole orchestration. Then the Sitecore MCP created the items. QA was 17 test passes with 89% text coverage. That's really good. SEO JSON structure is done. Performance is amazing. Code review, security, docs, rollback, everything is done. And it has also updated 6.1 KB of this checkpoint in the component registry.json, which could be the vector DB, as I said before. So this all is done, and my component is kind of ready. So, sorry, I had a network disconnect. So this is what my page looks like. So the MCP has not only created the component, but it has configured the component on the specific page in the order I asked. And this is what my component is, which I created for this recording session. So you can see like AI native delivery pipeline. I have the capability of going right and left. Similarly, I can show you that this particular component would be completely editable in the page builder. That's the basic bare minimum requirement when we are working on Sitecore AI projects. So that's the whole delivery, and in terms of if I show you the Sitecore, whatever the fields I had specified in my specification driven development ticket, the same have been applied here. Again, you can change as per your requirement. So here I can see that these particular is the component development, and I can change to everything should be editable. So whatever I require and specified in the ticket. So that's what the output is about this. And I think here we can say that our SDLC for this component creation has been completed, and documentation has been completed as well. So this is my run book, looks like, where as I said before, I can trigger these agents individually for QA, for release, for component creation. And these are the governance tracks. We have the intentions, we have the build, we have the quality gates, we have all the accessibility checks, we have the review gate, and the outcome is in one flow. So this is what the evidence pack is. We have a component developed ready, we have a storybook, we have a unit testing, we have a Sitecore content modeling with the serialization, we have the rendering definition specified. We also have the release scorecard, in which we can see that, for example, this is what the lenses look like. My component has QA passed, it has storybook passed, unit testing is passed. In terms of quality, SEO is passed, accessibility is passed, performance is skip safe. As I skipped that, AQA might have more coverage required, that can be run individually as well. Security is passed. So this all are deliberate design choices, depends on project to project, requirement to requirement. But it's again, the whole purpose of it is like it's all human controlled and human validated. That's the main thing here. The proof.
Uh, Thanks, Sandeep, for that wonderful demo and explanation. I think we all know that we have seen that AI is able to generate code, and we have actually like built a framework. It's not like an agent; it is actually a framework which actually spans to the entire SDLC, right? So it's not from like where you just give a Figma and start the development. Basically, it starts from your discovery. Like basically, it starts with your story creation. Even the Azure DevOps, what we see, right? Basically, we need to provide the input in terms of a spec-driven development, right? So starting from that till the ends where you actually deploy the code into the production, right? So this framework is actually taking care of the entire SDLC lifecycle. So of course, we cannot say that, yeah, this is what we have done, this is a POC, but actually, like, we want to show the numbers that we have actually experimented with a real-time project, right? Um, so looking at this framework, right? So as I said, basically it starts from your Figma designs and Azure DevOps ticket creation till actually we deploy it to the production. So this entire journey is actually captured as part of this framework, right? And here are the numbers that we actually were able to achieve. Like basically it is 80% manual effort reduction. When I say manual effort reduction, it's basically zero boilerplate code that developer is actually spending on. Basically he is able to spend more time on other activities that he can do, and 35 to 40% of faster time to market. When I say faster time to market, basically the components are generated faster, and it's not only about like component generation. We are also able to do the validation because this also includes the QA agent, right? So when I say QA agent, it also like validates the entire acceptance criteria, which is part of your Azure DevOps. So we are able to achieve like 35 to 40% of efficiency as part of our development lifecycle, and most importantly, the quality gate improvement that we can see, right? Because we have so many gates integrated as part of a framework, we are able to see that there is a improvement of 70% in the overall quality that is being generated. And of course, there are zero security spills because security is one of the key concerns. So as part of this development, right, we also make sure that security is taken care. The takeaway from this particular framework is that, right, this was not built as a developer productivity tool. So basically, this was actually a business acceleration story that we wanted to do, because when you actually go to clients, right, clients don't buy AI. So they buy actually faster outcomes, which are more reliable and secure. And of course, they want a predictable delivery framework. So that is the main aspiration for us to build this framework.
Yeah. So I think quickly here, like, I mean, like if you compare with the first one, which was just a prompts, that was like completely isolated, and every developer has their own mindset about prompting. So that was not consistent. The option two is without AI, where we can generate some CLIs or probably scaffold faster, using some tools. But I think now everyone has an access to AI, so not much to talk here. The third one is what we talk about. So this is all about the human-assisted SDLC acceleration, where orchestrates, the agents, and you can have the unit test with zero scorecard, as Vinod said. So the advantage here is like end-to-end coverage with each specification agent, with a specification-driven development, test-driven development. So I think here, what we got wrong was like in the lesson one was related to point one in the prompt. There was no skip safe model. If we were having each of the developer has their own prompts that were not very consistent. There was a lot of hidden orchestration inside in terms of hallucination, a lot of token overuse. So we have controlled that by introducing skills, by having the complete specifications in the ticket, and then there were some platform boundaries, so that have been controlled with the QA agents and very extensive set of 17 test steps that we have just showed you. So I think here the trust is the main thing, which should not be compromised at all, whether you are showing the time efficiency or not. So that's what the trust lessons we have, on majorly.
Okay. Finally, to wrap up, right? So basically, we are not looking at a human-free delivery. Basically, it is agent-assisted delivery with specifications as the blueprint. For this entire framework, the specification-driven development, that is the primary primary thing that we need, right? And of course, without human gate, this cannot be approved. So as part of every framework lifecycle, human approval is definitely required. Yep. And finally, before we wrap up, thanks for our sponsors. I think without sponsors, this wouldn't have been a great event. And of course, thanks for the opportunity that you have given to us.